living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep. The poor and the underclass are growing. Racial justice and human rights are non-existent. We have been lulled into a trance. They have made us indifferent to ourselves, to others. We are focused only on our own gain. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedate.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Well, I suppose all of that ruckus there, all of that noise and fanfare and just general rowdiness means that I have to stop playing the drums and pay attention and do something else for a few minutes. Welcome to the show. It is Toward Anarchy. I'm your host, Michael Storm. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the fact that you take some time to listen in, and it still surprises me all the time, every time, who's there and what they have to say about what we're doing, and good and bad. That's what's amazing about it. You know, I talk about not being too serious about this not being a work thing, even though I'm here, you know, religiously, if you will, every Sunday 1 to 3 p.m. right here across the Republic Broadcasting Network, doing the same general thing, talking to some anarchist or libertarian or somebody I know personally who may or may not be an anarchist or a libertarian about just things that are going on in the world and things that interest us and things that I think might interest you as I imagine who you are and as you're listening in and it's really great to be able to do this and play a little bit of a game and put the puzzle together and have all these pieces and have it come together each week and you know, watch the numbers and just do all this but I'm deadly serious about not taking it too seriously. I imagine that there are people who think that I should take it more seriously because there's always that someone who thinks that what you're doing with your time isn't good enough, that you should be doing more or you should be doing things their way or whatever it is. It doesn't matter whether it is what it is either. It doesn't matter if you're watching football or playing video games or if you're an activist on the street or an organic farmer. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing with your time. Somebody somewhere along the way, we've all experienced it if you spend any time in the social media and talking about sort of quote activism or whatever. You've experienced it. Somebody coming along and just telling you that you should spend your time better or this is a waste of your time or why do you do that instead of this? You should be doing this. This is better than any of that other stuff that you're talking. There's always somebody that comes along and says, you can't give that any consideration as you go forward in doing and choosing your thing. But it just I can't take it too seriously in that regard. I mean, think about it. How can you take all of this too seriously? I mean, this bigger view picture of the world. Have you seen the headlines? Do you watch? I mean, I know you don't watch the news. Maybe you don't watch CNN per se, but you're paying attention, right? This. How can you take this seriously? The whole thing is kind of a joke, isn't it? When somebody like myself, who openly professes to purposely remaining ignorant of everybody else's input on the world and accepting only my own assessment of things that I get, of whatever input it is that I take, so this is coming from me, and I can sit here and I can tell you for the last year that I've been 100% right about Fauci, the criminal dwarf guy, elf-looking, that guy. We'll talk about him a little bit. I'm sure it's going to happen, but of course all the emails came out this week. But that's just one sort of example. It's a really good example of it because of the way everything's being exposed now and how people like myself have talked about every single step of the way, about the failure of the media. That's the big conversation here in just the last few days, is how the media is all of a sudden doing the backtracking and trying to say, well, we're re-examining the evidence, kind of thing. You know, so, well, we missed this, as if there weren't a million of us over here just jumping up and down, waving our arms, and here's some evidence, or here's at least something you should be looking at that might be evidence, and maybe you should. You know, we're really finding out that you know, if I can do that, and the media can't, then it's kind of a joke, right? Because they're either incapable of it or unwilling to do it, and neither one of those things is acceptable in the face of my being able to do it. So in terms of this, taking any of this too seriously, I have to read some headlines. I was looking at my phone last night, and I kept hitting headline. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, I have to read this. How am I not? I have to say something about this and this and this. And then I realized, you know what? I have this stash again of these things, and I am going to really dive through them because I think they're funny, and I think that when it's all added up, you can't take any of this too seriously, because this is what you get. Mind you, if you're, I guess this is my argument, that he's just sort of a normal person, not trying too hard to really get input about what's going on in the world. And that's what, so I'm saying I'm avoiding being programmed in any direction. I'm just sort of letting the information flow and come at me as the devices, as our technology, as my input into what little input I have into it will allow me to produce some semblance of what I want to see, or what the world, what these machines, what everybody else wants me to see about what's going on in the world. Taking that all into account, it seems like a lot. It's not. I'm just getting the whole picture in there to paint why you can't take this too seriously. It's insane. So report shows Facebook's fact-checking actually amplifies the spread of information, and that's a quote, amplifies. So, okay, ridiculous, right? You've heard me talk about it over and over again. A new map of dark matter reveals undiscovered bridges between galaxies. Oh man, that opens up a whole new understanding of our world, or at least re-examines an existence, one that people believe exists, and interconnectivity, sort of space bridges, wormholes, things like that exist between each interstellar body, whatever it is, whether it's planets or whether it's actual galaxies or other universes. I don't know. Anti-vaccine group claims to have 3,000 pages of Fauci emails, get suspended by Twitter. Gee, go figure. They release all the truth and they get suspended. Let's see. Oh, this was good news here. Crystal Kaiser, sex trafficking victim accused of killing alleged abuser, wins her appeal. Let's see. And, this was interesting because this involves Fauci again. And this is my line of thinking, and this is why I snapped these. Annual new HIV infections in the U.S. down 73% since the 1980s, CDC estimates. And that's about understanding. That's about health. It's the same curve. I'll show you over and over again that exists with our understanding of disease and what happens, whether or not it was created by Fauci. And the fact is that a whole bunch of people died for AZT. Remember AZT, the cure? Fauci involved in that. Electric car batteries turning this country into an actual hellscape, which reminds me, because I went out and I spent $270, just 270 of the most wasted dollars I've ever spent in my life to buy a lawnmower, to do one of the things that I hate. It's the stupidest thing in the world, trying to manicure nature, especially for a lawn. I mean, maybe if you're like grooming it to play football on or something, but it just it's so much time and money and poison is placed into managing nature for no good reason other than this false sense of somebody else's idea of what beauty is, and that flat green bleh that exists in most people's yards. It's interesting, the environmental impact. I bought a digital electric lawnmower that's cordless. It's a 40 volt. It's the latest thing, and the reason I did it is because it's one of these package. Well, the entire system itself is a package deal. So I just bought the lawnmower, and it comes with the 5-volt battery, or the 5 milliamp hour battery, which is 40 volt, and it will power the lawnmower, which I used, and I put it to the test, and it doesn't cut any worse than a Briggs & Stratton 21-inch. It was fine. But the battery can be pulled out of it, and it can be used in the hedge trimmer and the blower, all that, and different things, like a power washer. There's a whole bunch of them. Everybody has a new, all the major box retail stores have something like this now. Walmart has its own brand, the Hart brand, and then Lowe's has its own brand, and Home Depot has their own brand, but they're all basically the same thing. If you look at them, they're all the interchangeable system. Your cordless drill, all of them, hedge trimmer, everything, all use the same battery. And then, of course, I see that headline about the battery, and I thought about it at the time too. And I even mentioned it, and I made some sneering comments about the idea of switching from a gas one to a battery-powered one. But when it came down to it, powering all those extra tools and different things, and not just the one thing, making that battery useful, that spoke to me. I was happy to do that, because I like technology, and I was happy to get out there with this new lawnmower. It looks like a race car. It's great, and it just you just touch it and it fires right up. It's a brushless motor. I told my daughter as we were leaving the store with it. I said, if nothing else, when it's all said and done, I'll have a 40-volt brushless motor that I can use. Even if I can't use the lawnmower itself, I'll pull the thing apart and use that brushless motor to power something. And so all around, I was just happy about the idea, the technology, and everything. But I mean, in the end, I hate the lawn mowing. I don't want to do any of it. I only do it because it's a law that I have to. My one neighbor gets it. I don't know if all my other. There's only one neighbor that I've had really that has been here the whole time. Everybody else, all the other neighbors come and go, and so I don't know if they have something to say about it or not. The other neighbor does. He gets it. He understands that I just don't care, and I don't encroach upon his. And of course, if you see a bush or something that looks like it needs, hack it. I don't care. Get it out of the way. It doesn't bother me. The new neighbor on the other side, there's these bushes that I cut down. The owner of the property had been letting grow there for years, and I can't do this anymore. These things are, for one, they harbor ants. The ants go there to get out of the sunlight. They can feed. And then cracks in the house, and then they get in the house, and you have an ant problem. And so you get rid of the places where they're at. Or if you can, this is one of the problems of manipulating our environment around us. It's one of the reasons that I don't mow the space in between us, not because it's just a common space and anybody else could do it, but behind my house, in between my house and then the people behind me, there's an alleyway. It's just a grass alleyway that you can't drive cars or anything through it, and I don't mow it. I don't curate it or tend to it at all. And it's not just because it's a shared space and anybody could do it and I don't feel responsible for it, but it's because if you leave that space, the animals, the things, they stay over there instead of in your yard, then coming into your yard and going to your house. There's so many reasons for not curating a lawn and curating plants and things around your house is certainly not the way that we tend to do it. And then it's so destructive to the environment. Anyway, COVID-related poverty may rival pandemic's health effects. Please, we said this to begin with. We were screaming, please do not shut down the economy. You can't do this. You can't shut the world down. This is not going to work. This is not how we do things epidemiologically. There's many more proofs that suggest that we're better off to let these things run their course, as bad as they may be, whether you believe these things exist or not, Wuhan. Let's see. The slowing COVID-19 vaccination rate is worrying experts. Here's some states who are, here's what some states are doing to change that trend. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this. Now, all over the place, there's millions of dollars. There's some states are giving away, and some companies, and they're giving away things like rifles, and they're giving away race tickets and sporting event tickets and anything they can to sort of con people into taking this shot and to jumping in on this thing. And remember, all the ferrets died. I have to reach over there and get this real quick. I have to plug my phone in or it's going to die. And that's not good. Can't have that. Can't be disconnected. Plug in directly right to the machine. Let's see. This mystery illness... the mystery illness taking the U.S. by storm is the common cold. That's from Vice, and they're just trash anymore. Nothing but trash out of them. But they're right on this, and they're talking about the young people being sick. And if you look again at the curves, it's nothing. It's down. There's hype. There's so much fear. They're doing anything they can to drive the fear, and you know that the fear gets them control. You get it that we're broken now. You know, my wife commented last night that everywhere she goes, most people aren't wearing a mask anymore, and it's been that way for a while here. For the most part, the masks have pretty well gone away, and definitely over the last month, even the hardened people are letting it slip a little bit. It's going away. You get into the habit of this happened to me just yesterday. You get in the habit of not putting it in your pocket anymore. You just had one. I had to wear one for work. I don't have to wear one for work anymore because none of the stores that I'm in demand it anymore. And so I just had the thing in my pocket all the time. But after I stopped having to wear one at work, it's been a few weeks now, and I don't know, I just forgot it. I don't even have it with me anymore. It's not with me anymore. But there are still people I see wearing them, and some of them, correct me if I'm wrong, look around, see it for yourself. The ones that I notice, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, junior high kids, early high school kids, easily impressionable, young preteens, still kind of wearing this mask. And I've asked, I know what it's about. They're doing it for other people. They bought into this BS line that they wear the mask to protect other people. That's true if you're sick. That's what those masks are for. That's what the surgical masks are for, to keep you from spitting into the corpse that you're working on. That's what they're for. They're not to keep transmission of viruses or anything like that. That's not what they're for. If they're worried about something like that, they take more precaution in the hospital. This is just another one of these things. How can you take this all too seriously? The whole thing is such a joke. When I can go and point this out without even... Humans can learn how to echolocate in just 10 weeks, experiment shows. That I thought was cool. I would like to do that. I'll finish these up, and I'll tell you who's going to be on the show here for the conversation coming up in just a few minutes right after this break. Okay, this is your duty. This is your job. This is what you have to do. You have to like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're on, whether you're one of these itty-bitty little groups of people that listens on one of these small platforms. It's funny, interesting, very neat to look at the numbers sometimes, as I'm wont to do, and I'll see sort of 6 people listening over here and 12 people on that platform and a dozen people on that platform over there and one in Portugal and over the time of looking, and I haven't in a long time, I haven't gone to look and see where people are sort of listening from in the world, but it's been fun to do it over the period of the show, and see sort of it pop up on the top 10 in New Zealand under social issues or something like that, and it's weird how it just here, there, everywhere, but just waiting for the big bubble to pop. Craig Harguess is my guest today. He'll join us. I'll add him to the conversation here after the next break. And you remember Craig, he is a Christian anarchist, if you believe that such a thing can exist. And I think we've discussed it enough on the show that they obviously do exist. I haven't seen anything necessarily particularly contradictory, any more so than any of the passages of the Bible can be taken by themselves out of context by the individual who's looking to find a reason to poke holes in something, as opposed to just accept something for what it is and move on. Craig Harguess, he'll join me here in just a few minutes, and he's the founder of the Bad Roman Project, and he hosts the Bad Roman podcast, and they've been having some success reaching out and talking to people and just bringing people, if you will, into the flock. Just having a place for people of a like mind to gather and think about and talk about just the things that we do. That's all that all of us are doing here, aren't we? Just trying to find someone to get along with and have a conversation with and spend some time with, because we have just so much time, and we like to spend it well and with people that we enjoy, and that's what we'll do when Craig Harguess joins us. And we'll talk about the Libertarian Mises Caucus, and I'm curious about people's impression of them, because they're definitely sort of making waves, definitely within the Libertarian Party, and they're getting noticed, and they're being talked about. And there are some interesting characters at the center of the LPMC, the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus. And they're an interesting group because, of course, they're using the word Mises that presumes that they understand the economics. And so, but they're also using Libertarian Party, and means that they're still missing something in there. They don't quite get the whole live and let live thing. They're still trying to play that game where some party, some group, some people decide. Again, it's I don't want to be that guy who's telling other people what to do with their time. I don't do that. I'm just stating it as a fact. That's what they are doing. Whether they find it useful or not, I don't know. Whether other people find it useful or not, I don't know. I find it interesting, so we'll talk about it a little bit today. TowardAnarchy.com. Look for June 6th, and you'll be able to follow along. I've shared links to the Bad Roman Project, as well as the website, and on Facebook at The Bad Roman. And we'll add Craig to the conversation here a little bit. I shared some other links, as always, with the lifted mask and gathering mandates and vaccinations. The option to return to work brings a wave of resignations as people realize their job doesn't define them, and the return just isn't worth the investment. And as I just found that an interesting article, and they're talking about to the people who, because of the way the last year, the way things went, people didn't quit jobs that they otherwise would have, and that's for all reasons, not just the going through that year and realizing on the other end that it just isn't worth the investment. but they were already getting ready to leave, or they already wanted to move on, change jobs, and that's another one of the things that's contributing to the problems in the market across the board. Markets across the board have been affected. Everything, it's everywhere. It doesn't. You point to it, and we can point to a place within it where this COVID response, the government response to COVID, has messed up the marketplace, and we're still paying for it. That's across the board, from employment to goods to services, you name it. UN reports says that an autonomous drone hunted and killed a human target without explicit command. And that, of course, brings to the question of regulating killer robots. Look up regulating killer robots if you're ever interested. There's a big movement of people trying to do that. We'll add Craig Harguess to the conversation next on Toward Anarchy. That's not right. I couldn't get my camera to work. I was trying all the way up until showtime. I recently moved back into my studio. I'm a little out of place, and I haven't got everything quite set up. I've been much more concerned about setting up my drum set and playing my drums than I have been about setting up a camera that I don't use every week. So when it came down to it, I couldn't get it going today. So, well, we have half video here. Craig Harguess, if you remember, he's been on the show before, founder of the Bad Roman Project and Christian anarchist. And he was on the show, and we talked about this idea of compatibility between the teachings of Jesus and anarchy and Christianity. And I think the general consensus is there's no real conflict. So I thought we'll have some fun. It just popped up, I don't know, maybe a week and a half ago or something. We were just ended up, and it must have been a couple of weeks ago because I'm on a ban. I've been punished by the social media, and I can't comment, I can't interact with people. So it was a couple of weeks ago now, and when we were just, I don't even remember what we were chatting about or why, but it just come up, this Libertarian Party Mises Caucus thing come up, and we thought, let's have this conversation, let's talk about this, because I've been wanting to get some impressions from other people. There's not a lot of people I know in sort of my real everyday, day-to-day life, in comings and goings, that know anything about libertarians, Mises, or caucuses. So any of those conversations I've not really been able to have with anybody. So when the opportunity came up, I thought it'd be really cool to talk about some of the impressions that other people get. So we'll get to that. We'll talk about those guys and who they are and what's behind it and just kind of what we think of them. But I wanted to just say, thanks for coming on the show again, Craig. I really appreciate what it is you do. I've been watching, as I do all of these things from the wings, and it looks like you're very successful at what you're doing, and you're reaching out to people, and as I was saying, bringing people into the flock, as it were. I think it's a great thing that you're reaching out to people with the libertarian anarchist message, and that it happens to be Christians that you're reaching out to. I just don't even, it doesn't matter to me. I want people, I want good people, and to get past some of the superfluous things that we often label people with when it comes to, just who they are, what they say they are, versus what they do, So it was a real pleasure, talking with you and deciding to do this and to get back together again and chat again. So appreciate you coming on the show, Craig. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be back. I really enjoyed our first conversation. I appreciate you having me back on. I think what you were talking about, the Mises Caucus thing, you kind of came in on the tail end of it. Me and that other guy that was on there on my thread, we've been arguing with a bunch of Christian anarchists about this.
Okay.
And so you kind of caught the tail end of it, because by then we had pretty much exhausted the conversation with these folks, because it was just going nowhere. But yeah, that was an interesting day, to say the least, because it was going on all day long.
All right. Well, we'll pick up that conversation. Tell me about the Bad Roman Project. It's obvious to me that you're reaching out, you're touching some people, and it's really cool. What are you guys doing?
I will say this first. Nobody is more surprised than me about the success we're having. I think I told you on the first time I was on the show that I really had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I thought it could have been an utter failure, and it would have been fine. But it has turned into something more. We're getting more and more people latching on to what we're talking about, and I have people messaging me because they're hearing about the show from other people, and that's really been cool to me that people are actually taking the time to share it with other folks. So yeah, we're just staying busy. It keeps us all pretty busy. You know, we got several people working on the project, and it's busy. It's real busy, which is good though. If you're busy,
right.
yeah. If it's busy, it means you're doing something right. And so
right, man. Yeah, I mean, if your mind is naturally going in that direction, it's good that you have a reason to. You know, if things are keeping you busy, then yeah, you must be doing something right. And I think it's fairly obvious, like I said, just from me watching from the wings, that you're reaching out and you're talking to people, and that you guys are having great conversations as well, and you're doing and you're working towards real world work and producing real world results with people.
Yeah, it's really, man, just the interaction for people listening has just been so incredible to me and to everybody involved. I mean, to be honest, we haven't made everybody happy and you're not going to please everybody, because what we're talking about really turns people's worldviews upside down.
Mm-hmm.
What Christian anarchism, when you look at the mainstream Christians, you know, how entangled with the state they are. It's what we're talking about is so foreign to them, because we've been so it's been beat into our head that we're supposed to try and fix the state with Christianity, and that's just not true. It should be the state should be completely foreign to every Christian, and that's what we're trying to get people to understand. You just to follow Christ and not the state, you're gonna be a lot better off, and it's gonna make the world a better place to live in too.
Yeah, and it's tough, because what'll happen is you'll run into statists who are Christians who will justify incorrectly using some verse and some lines from the Bible to justify going along with the state, and that's unfortunate, because that's just statism. That's what it does. That's exactly what statists do. I mean, that's really, when it comes down to it, how we end up being here talking about this something, because when the plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in the society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. So religion or whatever it is, if it's in bed with the state, it's going to try to use whatever it can to justify still supporting the state, even though the state, obviously, it doesn't represent the people. It doesn't represent the values within that religious system. Not as a core, not as the teachings. No, it certainly doesn't represent what I believe Jesus was trying to say.
Well, you know, and I had this place called Eloquilt. They interviewed me. It's an online magazine and print company, and they interviewed me. We got into talking about this a little bit, and they said, what Christians don't understand, you know, you got a commandment, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, you know, thou shalt not covet, all this stuff. And what you're doing when you are putting people in power as a Christian, you are disobeying those commandments, because the state's going to steal from people, the state's going to murder people. What you're doing is you're outsourcing your own sin to the state, and I don't think Christians understand that. When you put that kind of talk to these people, it catches them off guard. Which is perfect, because then it can start a conversation where maybe the wheels in their heads start turning a little bit, and they start thinking about it. That's all I want people to do with what we're doing. I just want people to kind of think about what's going on, because they don't think about it. It's so second nature to just be involved with all that garbage that they don't even think about it. But if we can get people thinking, then they can get some other folks thinking, and that's kind of how the message spreads from one person to the next. We don't try to reach, you know, we're a small platform, but if we can just reach one person, that one person can reach somebody else. And I may never meet these folks, and that's fine. You just get that message out there, keep talking about it.
Well, there again is another compatibility, of course, that I see in what I'm doing, as it were, and what you're doing. The Christianity and the anarchy connection right there. That idea of living a lifestyle that shines to others, that shows others who you are. It's not about the preaching. That's what the preachers are for. That's what the holy man is for. The rest of us are supposed to be out here just living a life that shows other people that there's a better way to do things. And that was one of the most valuable things I took from any Christian teachings I ever received, was that let your light shine, that you, being who you are, should speak for itself, and that's the best example that you can lead by.
Right, exactly. And we've got to get back to that. You know, I've been saying this a lot lately. We need to get back to that old-time religion. You know, I'm not talking about the 50s and 60s. I'm talking about the first 400 years of Christianity, that old-time religion, because those guys understood it better than anybody about what the state was. They were being persecuted constantly. They were being murdered constantly by the state, and they had no interest in it. They had no interest in it. And the Christians, the church today, needs to get back to that. And I think if we do it, it's going to be for the better. Just we got to get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's it. That's always been the better message. The people with the better message have always said, well, the best way to get our message across is just to live that message in front of other people. Yeah, I have no problem living a life that makes other people jealous in that sense. You know, if you don't like the way I live, maybe you might want to turn around and look at yourself, because this is how I live. I go through my life not violating other people. I make and keep voluntary contracts with the people that I do choose to interact with, and I generally otherwise keep and mind my own business and keep my hands to myself. That's if those things offend you, there's something about the way you're living that I don't know, maybe we need to talk about that. Maybe we need to address what it is that would make you think that those were bad things to strive for.
Exactly. Why are you so upset with me not bothering other people? That doesn't make any sense why that would bother somebody. I mean, if I'm not harming anybody, that should be looked on favorably, in my opinion. And it's so crazy to me how people can turn that upside down and, like you said, use the word jealousy. And I think maybe that is what it is, because they don't know how to live that way. It's foreign to them. We have to be meddled. We saw it so much over the past year too. We got to be in everybody else's business all the time. And I don't know how many times I've told people to mind their own business over the past year, but it's almost like I repeat it constantly to people.
Well, oh gosh, yes, over this last year, and everybody's in everybody's business, and that's funny that you say that, because it's one of these things that I really harp on, is this notion that it's one of the first things that we're taught as children. We're constantly told to mind our own business and keep our hands off to ourselves. So basically keep our hands off of other people and keep our hands off of other people's stuff. Where is it along the way? Maybe you can answer. I don't know if I've asked you the question before, but where is it along the way that we stopped letting that be a core lesson, a core value in people? And as we get older, all of a sudden it's about, by the time we're 18, it's get out and participate in the system and have the system that tells other people what to do to be in their business and touch on their stuff.
I think that's the problem. I think the state and the mainstream media and all that stuff is where all that starts, because they do such a great job of keeping people divided. You know, we hear so much about racism and this and that, and I live right outside of Memphis, man. It's one of the most diverse areas I've ever lived in my life, and I work with folks of all walks of life, and you would never know that we were supposed to hate each other. Now, you turn on the news or you listen to the politicians, they're going to tell us we're supposed to be hating each other. We just don't live that way. I just think if people turn off the damn news and ignore the politicians, a lot of stuff would go away. We would stop bothering people. We would mind our own business, because they tell us we're supposed to tell other people how to live. No, yeah. I'm not down with that.
No, you're absolutely right. I think there's this impression that is used by the media and the politicians to keep us divided. They amplify any racial issue, and it's interesting because we're at this point. I love this. This is great how this stuff always ends up just tying together. The thing with canceling is that it makes white people feel like they're doing something useful, but the black community never asked people to destroy or defund or edit media output which has graced our televisions and our movie theaters and libraries for decades. That isn't the root cause of discrimination against us. Often it feels like the usually white powers that be preempt some sort of angry backlash from my community and act accordingly. Don't do that. We'll let society en masse know what really pisses us off. Donald Glover said that, and it's perfectly fitting because I think it's how every white man, I hate to put it in those terms, who doesn't buy this cancellation culture and these things that are happening. This is exactly how every white man feels, exactly like this, but we can't say it because we're white.
Right, and before people start messaging me, I'm going to make clear that I do believe that racism exists. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. What I'm saying is I don't think it's as prevalent as people need it to be. I think people need it to be prevalent because it gives them a talking point to help keep us divided. So before you message me, let me get that out there too, because I want to make that clear. Because I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it myself. My brother's is married to a black lady, and they have biracial children and stuff, and they see it a lot. So I get it. I know it exists, but I don't think it's as I think it's overhyped to a point, and it really saddens me because, man, we could get along a lot better with each other if the state didn't exist. And if people turn off the TV, just pick up a book and read something.
Well, there again is another crossover in that idea that we live it. This is our reality. The perception is on that little TV, on that box, on the phone, whatever it is, on the social media page. That's that perception that can be altered and shifted and changed. But the reality is down here on the ground, we're generally not fighting about these things. We're generally not arguing about all this myriad of silliness and goofiness. We're probably talking about it in the back rooms and in the places where we are with each other and not with other people, so that they're not going to potentially be offended by it. But the reality is that on the ground, we're all getting along, and we generally all do all the time. That's that anarchy that we live in. We got to go into a break. We're talking with Craig Harguess, the Bad Roman Project. We'll be right back on Toward Anarchy. TowardAnarchy.com. That's where you need to go to follow along. TowardAnarchy.com. Look for June 6th, and you will see Craig Harguess is my guest, the Bad Roman Project. I shared a link to the website up there, as well as I'm going to get my I'm running over my cord with my chair and my head stuck over this way, and that's going to look really funny on camera because I managed to get my camera working during the break. So that was really cool. I think that was kind of neat. So my camera's working. So we'll have a little bit of video that we can throw up. Half of the video will be up available. The rest of it will be in audio up there like normal on the old YouTubes when you find it later. But you can follow Craig and the Bad Roman Project on Facebook at The Bad Roman. That's a tough one to remember, huh? At The Bad Roman. And I believe it's the same on Twitter as well. And you can visit the Bad Roman website and tune into the podcast, support the show, keep tabs on the entire Legion, if you will. TowardAnarchy.com. June 6th is what you're looking for. And I have to tell you, it's always great to have these conversations with people who just get it. It's tough to have a conversation with somebody when you have to sort of explain every single little thing you mean along the way, and I have those conversations, and I get why people are that way, because we're so manipulated into what we believe is supposed to be important, what we believe is supposed to be our concentration, what we should put our efforts into in our lives, and we get all of these mixed signals and messages from parents and grandparents to friends and neighbors and clergy and the government, and at some point you have to stop and realize that your reality is either going to be your reality with your vision of what your reality should be laid over top of it, or your reality is going to be reality plus somebody else's vision of what your reality should be. And out of those two choices, it seems to me to make sense to pick your own version of it, and there's a place for everybody in this conversation, in the conversation of libertarianism, of voluntarism, of anarchy, and that includes the Christians. And so it's always great to get to talk to you, Craig. This is a really short segment right here. We're going to go fall right back into a break. But when we come back, we'll talk about this Libertarian Mises Caucus a little bit, because and the reason I want to talk about it again is because I want to get other people's impression of this, and because I see the comments here, I see them there, and I see conversations with the people, and then I look and I go and I see, what is the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus? Well, who are these people? And I see names I recognize, and I see people that I've known for a number of years, and if I don't know them, I know their exploits, if you will. And so there's some question about the sort of means to an end here, and what it is that some of these people want within the Libertarian Party in the Mises Caucus. So we'll talk to Craig Harguess about that when we come back here on Toward Anarchy.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
I don't think that there's any good place that I can put the thing right now. This is the third time that the studio's moved over the last year, and so it's completely unset up. You see sort of raw emptiness behind me, I guess, if you look. But what's cool is you can see the drum set. There's the drum set. He's nice. There's my wall covering. There's some comic books. It's funny because everything is just stacked up in here, and it's just a garage otherwise. I don't have any of my sound foam up. I don't have any of my wall hangings. No, none of well, I have one comic book back there. It's my Star Wars #1. It's been a while since I had any video in here. It's kind of funny looking at it myself and see the guitar in the background there. I hadn't thought about it in a while, what it is I'm doing in here is sort of visually, because the show goes out, over the network as just audio. So, Craig Harguess is with me. If you go to towardanarchy.com, you look for June 6th, you'll find some links to the Bad Roman Project website, and to follow along on Facebook as well. And it was on Facebook where apparently you were having a conversation with some members ultimately of the LPMC. Is that what led to ultimately to us getting together to say, well, let's talk about these guys and talk about let's talk about that conversation in particular, what it was that you spent sort of a day arguing with them about, and what it is they wouldn't see, and then we'll get into who they are in a little bit.
Well, what kind of started is it's in another Christian anarchist Facebook group, Anarcho-Christian, and a buddy of mine was just trolling some of them in this group, because he started just making posts about how status the Mises Caucus is and all this other stuff, and that's just kind of how it started. And I didn't realize how many people in there were supporting this caucus, and it just kind of went from there, and it got a little nasty at times. I'm not going to lie, I didn't make some people happy that day, and it just kind of spilled over into Facebook as well. But what was so surprising to me, listen, I'm going to say this first of all, I think that these folks have a lot of great things to say. Okay, but what's so frustrating to me is we spend so much time trying to get a message out there about anarchy, and then we have to go backtrack and explain anarchists who are participating in a political party. It doesn't make any sense to me. It seems to me it waters down the message, it muddies the message, and it's confusing the message, in my opinion. Now, some people see it as they're trying to work through this, the Libertarian Party with the Mises Caucus to try and make change. But I don't. What I don't think what's so disappointing to me is, as anarchists know this better than anybody, that we should not be trying to tell people how to live their lives, even if you think what you're saying is right. Like I said, I think they got a lot of great things to say, and there's a lot of big names that are involved with this group, and it's been surprising to see that as well. You know, we have to be consistent with our message, or people are going to call BS. You know, I don't know how, I'm sure you're the same as I am with this, but if there's a message that is wishy-washy, I'm not going to latch on to it. I think consistency is so key in what we're trying to do, and when you're working through a political party to try to make change, it's going about it all wrong. To me, you're legitimizing the state. They talk about the Mises Caucus wanting to work through decentralization. Okay, great, but let them do it. Let the statists handle that. You know, anarchists aren't supposed to be involved with this stuff, in my opinion. Now, then I go in a direction too. Forget the anarchist side of it. Christians should not be involved with this stuff. We know that as Christians, especially Christian anarchists, but it doesn't, I don't know, man. I guess it's sometimes the temptation, maybe it's just too much for them, and they can't get away from it. I have no interest in being a part of any of that anymore.
It's a weird thing. I ask myself that question enough times. I see the good people. They're otherwise good people, but they still play in the political system, and they do it for a long, long time. I mean, I guess I don't have a lot of room to talk. It's only been a decade since the last time I played around, but I played around as an anarchist with no hope of anything ever coming out. I mean, I stood out in front of the Republican Party convention in Colorado in shackles and a jumpsuit that said FEMA on the back of it and a hood over my head. But it's just some theater, some message, you know, sending out there. No chance of having anybody elected. But I was playing the game for Dr. Paul. It was just this. I'm not even sure why I did it. So I bet there are a lot of people who are just like that. They're like, who cares? What difference is it? I'm still that way about it. I'm ambivalent about the idea of voting. Because statistically I know it doesn't mean anything. But unfortunately, I think that psychologically there's something that is born out of the democracy, out of voting, that lends some power to psychopaths and people who would otherwise grasp power and use it for ultimately their own ends, you know, to gain out of it.
Yeah, I think, and I understand a little bit about what they're doing, just because you know who Scott Horton is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I had him on, and I asked him this question, and it was something that, because I kept hearing it from other libertarians, they were like, if we just get a libertarian elected, a lot of this stuff will go away. I'm like, how do you know that? I said, you know, and I asked Scott Horton that. I said, how do you feel about that? He said, listen, if a libertarian was able to get elected president, it means that population of America went and voted for him. He said the best thing we can hope for is a good speaking tour, like the old Harry Brown type campaigns and Ron Paul campaigns. And I get it. I understand that. But I think he understands, too, that they're not going to get anybody elected. So maybe they're doing it as a speaking tour. I get it.
Again, platform, yeah.
Right. But I don't even think he claims to be an anarchist either. But
I'm not sure.
With anarchists getting involved with it, man, I don't know. We got to stay consistent, because I'm tired of having to explain other anarchists. It's just really frustrating to me.
No, I get exactly what you're saying, because the clear point of what you're trying to say there is very simply this. To be an anarchist is not just to be someone who is not ruled, but it is also to be someone who does not rule others. or even participate in the system that does rule others. I think that to be a consistent, complete anarchist, you must do both of those things. You cannot just claim that you can't. That's why I don't have any problem with the hyphenations, sort of anarcho-capitalist or anarcho-Christian or things. It tells me more about the person. Just telling me you're an anarchist doesn't tell me anything. It really doesn't, because I think most people, I'm not sure that it ever did. I mean, I think, unfortunately, and this is probably the worst part of it and one of the best parts of the hyphenation at the same time, is that I think for the longest time, anarchism is considered a leftist ideology, and with that, a failed understanding, from what I've been able to see, my argument with some of the agorists in accepting capitalism and markets and money and things for what they actually do and function as in their place in the markets, not as an ideology or something that needs to be forced or dictated by anybody, whether it's a small community or a larger, greater community. These things are things that that we do generally every minute of every day, decide for ourselves how to conduct business with each other and get along with each other. We don't need anybody else's input in that, regardless of whether you call yourself agorist, statist, Christian, whatever name goes along with it.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm overthinking this or not, and I may be, but I've thought about just not even using the term anarchist anymore, because sometimes I don't know if it means what it's supposed to mean to people. If you're going in all different directions with it, and maybe just calling myself a voluntarist, especially when I'm talking to a Christian, I try to use voluntarist more than I do anarchy, because they're going to understand that a little bit better than they are anarchy. But I don't know. It's like I said, I might be overthinking it, but it's just incredibly frustrating. It's just a
concern. It's absolutely a concern, and it's something that you have to reconcile with yourself early on, I think, and it'll help you. I think it'll help you release something here in the brain, the heart area, one of these things that helps you move on when you decide you're either going to use the term or you're not, and that's why the toward anarchy thing works so great. It's obvious. I'm saying let's work towards this goal of no rulers. I think that's an easy explanation to people, easier than I'm an anarchist. No, not the guys that light cars on fire and you're not those black bloc guys, because then you have to have that conversation. Well, there's this kind of anarchist, and there's this kind of anarchist, and there's it. And so let's use the hyphenations. Let's let people be who they are, but let's let our existence, the things that we do every minute of every day, speak for who we are. And so that's where that consistency that you're talking about needs to be.
Yeah. I do find it interesting, though, if I'm talking to folks, when I talk to them about anarchy, that there's a lot of people that understand actually what it is, even if they're not an anarchist. They don't buy into it like Donald Trump and Sean Hannity was saying, call it anarchy, because they know. I was talking to a guy at work the other day, and he saw my tattoo on my arm, the Christian Anarchist and stuff, and I talked to him about it a little bit, and he said, well, I know what anarchy is. He said, I understand that. He said, and he explained it like how we view it. Right. Now, he's not an anarchist, but he understood what I was talking about. So that's pretty cool. But getting back to the Mises Caucus stuff, let's play some. If you want to play silly statist games, fine. But let's stop calling ourselves an anarchist. You're a minarchist at best. Okay, and let's just be honest about it. And that when I say that to folks, it rubs them the wrong way. And this guy told me one time, it was one of the funniest things I ever heard. He said, I like to hang out in libertarian groups, so I call them statists. You call a libertarian a statist, you can just watch their head explode. They don't realize that they're statists. And even if the libertarian philosophy is better than a leftist philosophy or a conservative philosophy, you still don't have the right to tell those folks how to live. What if they want to live as a slave? Shouldn't they have that freedom to live as a slave? I had one of these guys that I was talking to in this debating, he goes, we need to legalize more liberty. And my jaw hit the floor, man. I could not. I said, did you not even hear what you just said to me? That sounds a lot like slavery to me. You're asking permission to have more liberty. No, 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 no. They're not going to give you more liberty. Let's legalize more liberty. God, dude, I think my jaw hit the ground. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. It's a funny thing. No, it's been my problem with the Libertarian Party in general. To me, it's nothing more than a party of compromise. It really is. It's actually worse than being left or right, because what happens is it's just an ultra factionalized group of people who don't fit in with the left or the right. They don't necessarily fit in with each other or give a damn about each other's needs or wants when it concerns, the value of government, if there's any to be had at all. They just don't find a home in the left or the right. And this, to me, makes it even worse. It makes them more ineffective. The Joe Jorgensen campaign was one of the least effective political campaigns that I've seen well, maybe ever. I don't know. There may have been a couple of really small guys, billionaires or millionaires or something, that made some ridiculous runs at it. But I think it was just a half-assed, half-hearted effort that didn't do anything to further the true agenda of the original Libertarian Party, the anarchists that created, and that's moving towards anarchy.
Yeah, right. And speaking of that campaign, the Spike Cohen aspect of it, people always tell me he's an anarchist. I was like, how's he an anarchist? He just ran for vice president of the state. That doesn't sound like an anarchist to me. They call rhinos Republicans a name only. Is there a name? I saw somebody post. Is there a name where we call anarchists a name only? Because that's a lot of what's going on in my mind with what's going on with the Mises Caucus and anarchists getting involved with the political party. Are you really an anarchist? Let's be honest. I don't care. Listen, I'm with you. I don't care if you want to do it, but let's get the term down to what you really are. If you want to be an anarchist, do it, man. Have a ball. But let's stop calling ourselves anarchists if we're doing this. You're making it more difficult for other people that are actually trying to get this message out there.
Yeah, well, and why even have them confuse their own message in that sense? Why make yourself have to explain what you mean by minarchism or anarchy or any of these other terms? Just be a libertarian. Yeah. Just be a libertarian. Everybody gets libertarian. You're not left or right. You're just somebody who probably an independent thinker, maybe a little bit crazy, probably did some drugs in the 60s or the 80s, depending on, but we get it. I think everybody gets it. And that is exactly what, I think that's exactly what you're talking about, is it just does. It muddles the message. And the message is hard enough. Right. When you're talking about in terms of trying to sit here and spell it out. I live the example every single day. I will put my life and my view of the world and the way I interact with it up to comparison any single day, no problem. But the conversation, the convincing, the work done in trying to propagate an idea as opposed to let an idea just grow, that's something that you can't compromise on it, and the party of compromise is going to fall victim to it every time, I think.
Yep, I totally agree with that. I think we can, let's just get back to what our messaging is, man. And if the statists want to play in these political parties, let them do it. I mean, I don't care, because I've gotten to the point now I don't even think about who's president. I'll get messages from people from like the Libertarian Party. They're wanting me to reach out to my rep in Tennessee, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to him. Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything to say to the guy. He seeks power over other people. I'm not interested in having a conversation with him. He's gone.
And he speaks a different language because of that. You have to get past that language barrier before you can ever even get down to actual problem solving, and that's the problem with government. It's all about arguing about the language, about the way we address things, as opposed to actually solving any problems. It's all about this superficial appearance of of giving people a say, of giving people a chance, of being equitable. It's all about these appearances. It's 100% facade, and the facade itself is one that is so fragile that man, boy, if you just keep the message consistent and clear, and you just keep saying it over and over again, and you let that one person, you said it earlier, if you just hit that one person hears it, maybe they take it and they move on with their own message in their art or their music or in their teachings, if they get in front of their flock, whatever it is.
You know, something occurred to me the other day when I was thinking about having this conversation with you. There's some folks that are involved, like some big names that involved with this stuff. They're big names that call themselves anarchists, and this is probably going to piss some people off, but I think they're using this as a platform to make some money. I don't know.
You're not the first person to say that, so by any means, so don't even feel bad about it. They're used to it. There was something just recently about their spending, and it was, I mean, to me, it was the spending of politicians. I was not offended by what I saw. I expected what I saw. And that, my friends, people who are giving money to a cause, is what you should be paying attention to, what it is they're doing with your money. And if you don't like that, take your money out and put it into the Bad Roman Project. I don't know what you could do with some money, but I bet you could use a few bucks. All right, we got to go into a break. We'll be right back here to wrap it up with Craig Harguess. WardAnarchy.com. Look for June 6th when you get there, and you will see that Craig Harguess is my guest, and you will see also where you can follow him on Facebook at The Bad Roman. That is true of Twitter as well. And you can also visit the Bad Roman website to find out more about the project and what they're doing and how they're reaching out and spreading the message of libertarianism, little L libertarianism, questioning big L libertarianism as it were, at least at this point. And we could go on and on. We could talk about some of these individuals. It's interesting, and some of the same names that keep popping up in the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus are some of the same names of people who were supporting the Trump administration not so many moons ago.
The most libertarian president ever. How many times have you heard that garbage?
I hadn't heard that one in a little while. Yeah, it's been a little while since I heard that one, and that is a funny one. That is a good one. That is quite classic, actually. Unfortunately, there's only just so many who are going to get it and laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, go ask the folks in Yemen just how libertarian Donald Trump is. They might have a different view of that.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people. I think you can find a lot of people just around the corner here in America and on American streets that have fallen prey to Trump as a businessman, as a man, as a president, in any number of ways that speak to the fact that he is not a libertarian. He was a leftist. He was one of those rhino guys, right? Whatever.
Yeah, I think he played the biggest joke on the Republican Party as a Democrat. It was so funny to watch because the dude's not a conservative. He's a socialist, and you want to watch a Republican's head explode? Call Donald Trump a socialist. they don't get it. I say, he signed two of the two biggest corporate bailouts ever during this COVID stuff. That's not conservatism, my friend. You were duped.
Yes, and the funny thing about it is that it was planned out all along. I mean, you can go back in his career, you can see that he is leftist all along. Said that he bragged about how he could fool people into believing that he'd been doing it for years, bragging about how he could fool conservatives into believing that he was their candidate and get himself elected, and damned if he didn't. And what's his talk about? He's supposed to come back in August again. There's more talk about that.
What is this insanity, man? I see this stuff on Facebook, and I think I'm really concerned about some people's mental health.
Right?
It's crazy. No, and I mean, it may sound like I'm being snarky, but I'm genuinely concerned for some of my friends, man. It's crazy what they believe. I mean, I've asked them to seek some help. try to get your head straight, man, because this is insanity.
Well, it was like I was saying before you joined the conversation. I said, I can't take this too seriously, that this has to be a fun thing for me, that it will never be serious, because I can't take any of it serious, and I'm just reading these ridiculous headlines and commenting on how someone as simple as myself, who's not even trying, has a better picture and understanding of the world than most of the people who claim to, and who claim to be offering us some sort of guidance through this life. You know, it's sad and funny and tragic and all of these things to watch, but I definitely can't take it too seriously.
No, you can't, man. It'll make you go crazy. I used to take it so seriously. Just because I was so afraid of the other team, and now just, like I said a while ago, I don't even think about who's in the White House. I don't care. I just don't care. I walk around, living my life, not harming people, and I just don't care what they're doing in Washington, D.C. I don't care. You shouldn't be afraid of these people.
No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. It's too bad that we've been conditioned to, but it is its own system, and it feeds on itself, and that's the beauty of being able to sit back here and watch it and live the life, shine the light on the evil, as it were, because it's certainly fitting. It's apropos of the whole old thing, a big, giant, evil Leviathan that does all of these things to all of us that are, you know, sort of against the rules, and it's well, I guess we'll see where it goes.
I think it's going to fall. I think it's going to fall apart.
Too.
So I don't think, and if people need to start recognizing that, and we need to be ready for it.
Yeah,
because when it does, the empire
short term. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know when we'll see it, but it's coming.
It's escalating, right? I mean, that's all you can say about it, is that it is an escalating issue, and that it's forthcoming.
It's so unpredictable, but you do know it's going to happen. You know
it's incipient. That's the word, incipient. It's coming.
Yeah, and that's what going back to the anarchists getting involved in this stuff. We need to start working towards anarchy, and not working towards the state, because it's coming, and we need to be prepared. We need to be ready for this. Thank you
so much, Craig. It's been a pleasure speaking with you again, my friend. You take care.
Yeah, buddy. Anytime. Thank you.
SwordAnarchy.com if you want to follow along, and I ask that you do, and that you like, share, follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're hearing us on, wherever you're seeing the social media posts. It's really important right now because I'm in the middle of being suspended. I'm not able to function, and it's a big chunk. It really hurts. It's an evil thing that they do, that Facebook does, and I could go on and on about how there would be no Facebook without the people, and that even though Facebook has property rights, and I'm the first to argue this, that they are exercising them improperly, and that they have also created an environment based on an idea that you can come here and you can share and you can open yourself up and you can create community and you can create businesses and partnerships and friendships, and you can do all these things across their platform, but then they can just shut it off arbitrarily for any reason. That's a huge problem for me, and I'm not against the idea at all of a class action lawsuit against Facebook, and I'll tell you why. I would suggest individually, of course, that individuals take action against them, but you can't. You can't hurt them enough as an individual. Even the biggest individuals on Facebook can't hurt Facebook as an individual. You would need a class action lawsuit and yeah, the lawyers would get a bunch of the money and all that BS that goes along with class action lawsuits, but the fact is that's the only way that you can hurt something like Facebook, as big as they are, because they've put themselves in a place where they're invaluable in some terms. You can't replace them, and that's not good when ultimately they've created that platform and those groups and everything under a false premise or false pretense, and that's that you'll be able to do it, and that it's yours, and that you get to keep it, and that you can make the decisions about it, and you can do things. But that's not true. They lead you to believe that, and they give you some great leeway in those terms. But the arbitrary nature of being suspended for in particular, in this case, in my case, I have it's right here. I believe I captured it right here I think it's right here on my desktop. I'm not catching the video anymore. That was fun. We caught a little bit of video there that we'll share on the old YouTube when it's all said and done, when we post the archive of it. But yeah, it's here on my desktop. And I can just read you through it. Today at 18 a.m., your comment is back on Facebook. I disagreed with their decision at 8:11, and it was at 2:14 a.m. that our comment didn't follow community standards. So I didn't get a lot of sleep that night, apparently. And all I was saying is that it was actually interesting, because it was another one of these problems where it was within a libertarian group, and it was one of a meme that I shared, that I believe I shared with you guys last month. It would make sense if I was looking at May. Which one it was? Yeah, it was. Oh man, I clicked right on it. Boy, I am good. I just knew it wasn't the last day in May, so I didn't select the last day in May. I'm not that good. I'm just logically moving in a certain direction all the time to reach a certain end, and that was to get to the right place, and I knew that the last day of the month was not it. Pictures of me getting the vaccine, and what it is me bribing a doctor for a proof that I have the vaccine, not that I got the vaccine. And there was some stupid comment, and in particular was a stupid comment that I paid the guy for nothing, so I'm an idiot because I didn't get the vaccine, so I paid him for it. But the reality is the person was pro-vaccine, so they weren't arguing logically about the implications of the photo, which was that I got the passport for it without getting the vaccine, that's what I paid for. And this was in a libertarian group, in a economically smart group, but it was hate about me ultimately being against getting the vaccine, and this guy was pro-vaccine, and he wanted to jump in and throw his 2 cents, and he ultimately reported me for nothing because I shared this meme, and he insulted me, calling me an idiot, and before not getting anything for my money. So he purposely went out of his way to take the meme and its meaning out of context to purposely insult me, and because I call him a rat bastard for doing so, and he reports it, I get banned, and because it's regressive, it's 30 days. So because of things I've done in the past that have nothing to do with this, whether I was exonerated in them or not, and whether I was exonerated in this, and I was, and I'm still banned. That's why I think there's ample reason why Facebook should be punished, and it should be punished legally for doing so, and the only way you would be able to do so in this environment is a class action lawsuit. So I'm not against the idea. I would want to hear the details of it, and I would want to explain what it was, the ultimate goal of it, of filing the class action suit was. Whether if it was about bringing the message to Facebook that they cannot arbitrarily control our language. It's one thing about the images. That's a whole big old thing that is a huge problem because there are so many questionable images that end up getting posted in an open forum. If you've ever been on any of the chans, 4chan or anything like that, if you've ever been on the other side of the web, there's no holds barred, and so it's not family friendly. And that's part of what Facebook thinks it's trying to do, is present a safe space for people. But that's not what they should be doing, especially when they're so advanced, way more advanced than what's going on with your average Chan. And yet in your Chans, you either follow or you don't. You're seeing the comments from scumbags or you're not. You have the control, and you do so in Facebook. And if there was some push to make the social media people realize that what they need to do is provide tools, and that they need to explain to people that this is it. We're not policing this space for you. This is not a safe space. This is an open space, a place where people of like minds can come together and gather. And if you are not of a like mind, then don't come here. This is the way. This is the way. I guess I need some Mandalorian. It's time for a new season of the Mandalorian. I've been filling in with the Bad Batch. That's been a pretty interesting show. I'm enjoying this. There are a bunch of clones in between the Republic and the Empire. They're caught in between the transition from the Republic to the Empire, and they don't know what to do with themselves. They backed the Republic before, but the Empire is this obvious evil thing, and of course they're looking back at everything that they did for the Republic and going, oh, well, most of that was evil, obnoxious stuff that we shouldn't have been doing too. But they were always a little bit different. This Bad Batch, they were different than the rest of the clones. And the latest episode was kind of neat because they introduced a couple of characters, some sisters, they become, I guess, ultimately high-level spies within, I'm assuming, the rebellion. They don't know. I know because I've watched enough of the better Star Wars stuff to know that these two sisters are involved with Ahsoka Tano, and she was a former Jedi, and she's no longer a Jedi, but and so they're tied in there somehow, and so the Bad Batch is going to end up getting mixed up with Ahsoka one way or another. They introduced that whole storyline in just the recent episodes, and I had to. It was good. It's been a good story, and there were people bashing it. That was like I meant to talk about it last week, and I had just jotted it down in my notes about the Friends reunion because I happened to have HBO Max, and the Friends reunion was on there, and I watched it, and there had been all these. That's why I hate critics, is that they want more than it's supposed to be, and that was all I could figure about with the Friends reunion, is that they wanted more than it could ever be from it. It's like they wanted brand new episodes from the same actors that existed 18 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was that they were doing it. And I always caution against this. I caution people against doing things like this, and I myself have put myself in this frame of mind about these things a long time ago. It had to come with radio. It had to come with being an announcer, particularly in sporting events where you can't choose sides. And by the time I was 20 years old or so, I had already made it a point not to choose sides, even when I liked one team or the other better, and to watch and view my sporting events or whatever it is with an objective view toward the accomplishment of the game, regardless of what side somebody was on. So actually enjoying the sport as opposed to the politics of the sport, or that's what it is. That's when you're choosing a team. That's the politics of the sport. That's not the sport. I'm a fan of the sport. I love football. I love the competition. I wish I had played football I probably could have, but I wasn't a athletic person, so it was never a real goal for me. I played a little bit in school, but never anything serious. It never anything to get me. I never ran into a coach or anybody like that. I didn't have a father who would inspire me in the direction of sports like that. My mother didn't want me to be involved at all, and I insisted and signed up on my own. And did a couple of these things over the course of my primary education. It would have been great. I love football. I love the competition. I love hockey. That would have been, wow, what fun there, huh? Basketball, not as much. I never got into it, I guess. I still the competition and the guys that fly and those sharpshooters, boy, man, it's amazing when you get into it and when you watch it. It's just not one that I ever invested the time in. For me, it was football. I grew up in a football city. It was Denver. It was Denver, Colorado, and I grew up with 70s and 80s Broncos. So I grew up with the best and worst of football, really, truly in the history of football, including the whole notion of franchise players. High-scoring quarterbacks, the West Coast offense, all of that stuff. I went through all of that, and came out the other side of it a fan of sports and competition and the need to do such things, and not a fan of the politics and the choosing of sides and the things that the people who aren't involved in that competition and who don't ultimately respect that competition. They're just choosing sides because it's what they do. Didn't like that so much, but it's a human nature thing that's easy to fall into, and it can happen with any number of things. And it manifests itself just like that in that political sense. Pretty interesting notion, the crossover between something so simple like that. What you think of as just being, it's my team. Well, no, you've really chosen a political side. You made a statement that you're on this side of the line and not on the other side of the line, and that usually accompanies a disdain for any success by people on the other side, and that was always weird to me. I always wanted to see amazing plays and amazing catches. It always sucked if it was the other team that did it and my team was losing. But as soon as you lost that my team mentality, it's not my team, it's just the team I watch. Wow, a whole new world of opened up as far as just being who I am today in that term, in that same simple term that I'm always expressing, of being somebody who is trying to take the best of the entire situation, not just the political side or the side that looks expedient or looks like it might win. I want the best side. I want the best players. I want everybody to succeed. That's the thing about it. And I want it for everybody. I want the game to be so ridiculously hard in those terms because everybody's so good at it. That's what makes something like that worth watching, is when man, that guy's amazing. Well, that guy's amazing. Did you see how he just stopped that guy? I again, not trying to ever tell anybody what to do with their time. That's one of those big things. I invested a little bit of time in football, and I liked it, and I still like it to this day. No question about it. A couple of things. There's a number of these in here still. This past week in 2004, remember the Killdozer? Sometimes reasonable men must do unreasonable things. It's a wonderful, happy thought. And if you don't dig any deeper, so don't dig any deeper, those of you who like the Killdozer, don't dig any deeper. Because you dig any deeper, he's not a reasonable man. That's what you end up finding out. You find out that he's on a mission from God ultimately, and that reason is thrown out the window. And it really is. Let's see, where were we? Let's see. Oh, I love these. Facebook created some same day Pentagon kills a similar project. I thought this was interesting, and I didn't look it up, but they the Pentagon killed this LifeLog project, and that was supposedly the exact same day that Facebook was started, February 4th, 2004. Again, 2004. Uh-oh, there's a connection. It must be real. Something's going on here. They show that Gmail is basically the Masonic Royal Rich Apron, and I'll tell you some of these other symbols when we come back here, and we'll wrap it up on Toward Anarchy. In case you couldn't tell, I switched back to just looking at my phone again. I had just picked up right where I left off, mainly because there was just so many of these in here that I wanted to point out. And one of these was this thing about that Pentagon LifeLog project that went offline the same time Facebook came online. And then, of course, if you understand about symbology and the way some of these things work and the messages that can be sent across, just in simple terms of a few lines, and so then you start looking at the Gmail logo, and it looks like the Masonic Royal Rich Apron. And if you look at the Apple Store logo, it's basically a Freemason ruler and pen and things like that. And then you look at the Android product store, it's a compass. And then you have the Google Play Store, looks a bit like the seal of Satan. Certainly, if you add the horns and things to it, I mean, it's there. Let's see, the Facebook logo looks kind of like the Masonic tubal cage. I don't know if any of these are 100% correct, but most of them are self-evident. And that one I'm not certain of. But like this one, the Google Chrome logo is definitely the 666, the Divine King sign. Whether they knew that or not when they put it together, that's always the question. Do they know what they're doing? And a lot of times they do. Let me tell you something. As somebody who makes logos, I've made a lot of logos over the years for corporations that either I work for or they came to me and said, "Please make us a logo." I'm an artist. I do some things. Making some logos is what I did, and let me assure you, at no time in the creation of the logos did I not consider what I was making and what it meant. Does something else look like this? Did somebody do one of these before? Does this look like the seal of Satan? Well, why the hell would we want to use the seal of Satan on our product? Unless, of course, we wanted to use the seal of Satan. A lot of trauma. Trans parents say medical system isn't set up for their pregnancies. Not sure. I don't even think I want to know why. It sounds like a personal problem. That's the reality. Now proven against coronavirus, mRNA can do so much for. They're pushing for that. And there's this thing about the proteins already being damaging, and that they knew about this years ago. I'll have to follow up on that one. It's one it's just popping up that I saw. I mean, I know a number of things. A bunch of this information is out there, but there's just this one thing in particular about the proteins and about them being about it being well known that they would be destructive to the body. And so we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this thing plays. All the ferrets died. If you don't know, you don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know who's going to be my guest on the show next week. I did not confirm with them yet. And so I don't know for sure, but we might just go ahead and do the phones. People have been calling up for the last few weeks wanting to jump into the conversation. Maybe we'll just do that next week, and I'll confirm the guest for next week. Either way, until then, it's Toward Anarchy. You take care.